On me fix your mind, let your intellect dwell in me. In me alone shall you live thereafter. Of this there is no doubt. Shri Krishna tells Arjun something in a very short and simple way. Shri Krishna tells Arjun that if he wishes to perform bhakti, devotion, then he should know this. One should fix their mind on the Supreme Soul and let their intellect dwell in the Supreme Soul. Shri Krishna tells Arjun that if he does these two things, then he will reach a higher state, and in God alone will he live thereafter. Despite giving this much clarity, God goes even further in this verse by saying, of this there is no doubt. There is no doubt about this. Look at clearly what God is saying in this matter. A very famous verse. Look how clear God is in this matter. A very famous verse of the Gita is the 47th verse of the 2nd chapter. Karmanye adhikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana ma karma phala hetupur ma te sango akarmani. To action alone have you a right, and never at all to its fruits. Let not the fruits of action be your motives, neither let there be in you any attachment to inaction. God is so formulaic in that verse on the matter of karma yoga, the yoga of action, and in my perspective, this very verse here is a mantra of the science of bhakti, of devotion. If you want to see the karma yoga, the yoga of action in the Gita, then you'll get it in the 47th verse of the 2nd chapter as I just chanted. And if you want to find out what bhakti yoga, the yoga of devotion is in the Gita, then this verse will tell you. Maya eva mana adasva maya buddhim niveshaya nivasyasi maya eva atta udvam nasamshaya. On me alone fix your mind, let your intellect dwell in me alone shall you live up thereafter, of this there is no doubt. Shri Krishna has said 4 things very clearly in this verse. Just like in the 47th verse of the 2nd chapter, Shri Krishna said 4 things in the 4 lines of that verse. In the same way, Shri Krishna says 4 things in the 4 lines of this verse. First of all, Shri Krishna says to fix your mind on Him alone. Secondly, you should let your intellect dwell in Him. This is very imperative. Shri Krishna says, do this, do this. The first 2 lines of this verse are said imperatively. In the 3rd line, Shri Krishna says that if one does these 2 things, then in Him alone will they live thereafter. In the 4th line, Shri Krishna says that of this there is no doubt. One will certainly develop, and there is no doubt about this. Shri Krishna is very clear. Because Shri Krishna has said, in me alone shall you live thereafter, this means that you will not live anywhere else. And in spite of this, the Lord says that there is no doubt about this. There is no doubt about it at all. The Supreme Soul has asked for only 2 things. Give me your mind and your intellect. I've spoken about a Sufi story in an earlier class that I like very much. Sufi saints give this story all the time. There was a very prominent businessman who had a lot of wealth, and this prominent businessman had only one daughter. She had a very beautiful appearance. She reached 22 or 23 years of age, and talk about her wedding began. When a daughter like this was going to be married, then as soon as the news reached society, then so many suitors came for her to say, marry her with me, marry her with me. They all know that whoever marries this girl will get everything. She was a beautiful girl, she was a cultured girl, she was wealthy, and she was the only daughter. So many people came to ask for her. Men from all the nicest houses, wealthy men, educated men, handsome men lined up for her. Both the father and the daughter got confused about what they should do because they got so many nice proposals. Both of them sat down together and decided a short list of all the suitors. She found something wrong in one boy or the other. She said that something was lacking in one way and missing from another. Eventually the short list went down to 3 boys. These 3 boys were good in every way. They were handsome, from good families, from prestigious families, wealthy, intelligent, and everything was exactly the same for these 3 boys. They could not decide what to do. These 3 boys found out that they had been shortlisted were in the final round. They became so filled with feelings for the girl that they kept thinking in their minds that only they were going to marry the girl. They said that one out of these 3 was going to be the luckiest because he would get to marry the girl. They kept thinking in their minds that they would be married to her. All 3 of them fell in love with the girl in their minds. The girl went to meet with all 3 of them, walked with them and tried to understand them. She would go to eat with them, do all of this. She would sit down with them and talk with them. All of this was happening. Therefore, all 3 of them thought that she only had feelings for them. The decision was not yet taken, and the matter was still at this state, but all of a sudden, an unexpected event occurred, and the girl got ill and died. She was being put in a coffin because she had died. These three boys got into such a state. This had such a big knock-on on these boys because they thought that she was so beautiful and they had fallen in love with her with their minds. They thought about what they should do. One of these boys decided that there is nobody else for him in the world, and therefore if he married a girl, then he would have served her father. He thought about where her father would go because she was his one daughter, and therefore now there would be nobody to look after her father. He thought about after getting married he would serve the girl's father, and therefore he decided to serve the girl's father, and that was the goal of his life. The boy began to serve the girl's father. The second boy thought that there was no use of living in the material world, and that if he had married the girl, then it would be something different, but now the material world was not worth living in, and therefore this boy left the material world to join a group of Sufi fakirs. He became involved with them and became a fakir. For the third boy, nothing could make him happy. Day and night he would sit by the grave of the girl in which the girl's body was put. Tears kept flowing from his eyes. He would not move from there. He would not eat, drink, or do anything else. He would just sit by the girl's grave. 6 to 7 months passed, and a boy who had gone with the Sufi fakirs came in touch with a saint, and he acquired knowledge and a mantra from the saint through which you could make a person who had passed away come alive again. He acquired such a mantra, he attained this knowledge. As soon as he acquired this knowledge, then he did not wait but came running, because he had only one person that he wanted to make alive again. He stood in the cemetery of this town and went where the girl he loved was buried, and chanted the mantra. Suddenly, as if by magic, the girl became awakened, came to life, and stood in front of him. Once again the question came to her of who she should get married to. She was alive now, and therefore she had to decide who she would get married to. The father told his daughter that he could not decide, and therefore she should decide, so that whoever she chooses, her father will get her married to him. The daughter told her father about her decision, that father, after my death, the boy that just looked after you is like my brother, because he served you like I would serve you. The boy who went into the group of fakirs, who learned some mantras and who gave me another birth, is like my father, because he was the one who gave birth to me. But the boy who, without thinking of anything else, sat beside my coffin crying about me, is a boy I want to marry, because I did not go away from his mind. He never forgot me, even for one moment. The other two boys had love and everything for me, but tried to make efforts in order to turn their minds elsewhere. They may have tried to forget me in a good way, and may have made enlightened efforts. They did not try to forget me through intoxication or addiction, but they tried to forget me in a good way, but they made efforts to forget me, for example, in serving you or becoming a Sufi. They did not know that they were going to get this mantra. They tried to divert their minds somewhere else. On the other hand, this third boy just sat by the coffin and could not forget me. He could not make his mind go somewhere else, and he fixed his mind on me. He knew that he would be able to attain me, and yet he would not be able to attain me, and yet his mind remained in me. That is why I will marry him. Sufi saints give this example, and I say that on the path of bhakti devotion, the Supreme Soul says this very same thing. Maya eva mana adasva, maya buddhim niveshaya, nivasyasi maya eva, ata udvam nat samshaya. On me alone fix your mind, let your intellect dwell in me, in me alone shall you live thereafter, of this there is no doubt. The Lord cannot be seen in front of us. Does that mean that we should turn our minds elsewhere? No. And if your mind turns elsewhere, then you lose the Supreme Soul. God says that bhakti, devotion, is nothing other than giving your mind to God. And our whole idol worship is based just on one goal, to give our minds to God. The idol worship that is more developed and elaborated in Sanatana Dharma than anywhere else. We offer such nice food to God, we make God such nice clothes, and we look after God in such a nice way. What is the goal behind this? There is only one goal. My mind should go to the Supreme Soul, and that is it. Let us take the small example of making God wear a garland. Why did the rishis think of making the Lord wear a garland? I often say this during my discourses. A person begins meditating on God as soon as they go and pick up flowers. Their mind goes to God. From where they are, they say, I wish to worship the Lord, and I wish to make this mind concentrated on God. While picking flowers, they think, this is such a nice red flower, and my God will like this. Or this is such a nice white flower, my God will like it. They pick and choose each and every flower and separate its petals. Then they make a garland out of them. They make a garland and they keep thinking about the Supreme Soul. They keep thinking, will my God like this garland? They will think that the form of my Lord is so beautiful. While thinking this, the whole garland is made. And then after offering the garland to the Lord, one sees that how beautiful does my Ishtadev, my personal God, look. Therefore, right from the moment when they were picking flowers, all the way to when they offered the garland of flowers to God, and even a little time after this, the mind remained with God, and the mind became steady on God. That is why our Rishi said to offer a garland of flowers to God. This is the substance. And to what extent did people bring this to? One person says that he's going to worship the goddess Mahalakshmi, and another person says, really? Here, I'll give you this £50 note. Can you please go and offer a garland for me? Oh, what will Mahalakshmi do with your garland? Does the mother goddess want a garland? No, she needs you. You go there, you offer it. And there have been so many misunderstandings in this field. When I was very young, and I found it strange and unusual, a Guruji, when he was young, in Puleshwar, you will see that people early in the morning come with gardens and dishes. They go into each and every shop, and there are only 5 flowers in the garland. There are 2 at the top, 2 in the middle, and 1 at the bottom. After counting several times, Guruji has never seen a garland with more than 5 flowers in these plates. Now, if it comes, he doesn't know. This person does this, and his typical dress is a torn shirt and baggy trousers going all the way to the bottom. If a person wears a shirt and baggy trousers, then it will suit or not whether a person wears a suit with baggy trousers, then it will suit those people with the torn shirt and baggy trousers. This is a typical dress, and they're walking without ever wearing slippers. This is a whole small-scale industry in Mumbai, and they're walking with a dish in their hands. They go into each and every shop and throw the garlands from the day before away and take new flowers and put vermilion in them. I don't know where this science has come from. The person sitting in the shop puts vermilion on the new flowers, and the owner of the shop thinks, wow, what bhakti devotion we do. When the end of the month comes, then the person takes his 10 rupees, 15 rupees, or however much he earns. I have my doubts about whether or not why God accepts this such a garland. It is fine up until the point that the person's family is running because of this business, and they are supporting their family, but that is it. But this cannot be called bhakti, devotion. You do not even know the person, and do not even think about this person. You should think that I wish to sit by my Lord. When Guruji used to see these people in his childhood, then he felt that, can one really make God wear a garland in this way? Has this person got an interest in your God? Has this person got an interest in your Ishtadev? No, he has just an interest in what you gave him at the end of the month. God says in this verse, Maya eva mana adyasva, Maya buddhi niveshaya, Nivatyasi ma eva, ata udvam nasamshaya. On me alone fix your mind, let your intellect dwell in me. In me alone shall you live after, of this there is no doubt. God does not say, give me a garden, sweets, the 54 foods, gold, silver, jewelry, and silk clothes. God has asked for just 2 things, our minds and our intellects. We should think about the spiritual meaning a little. We operate from 2 levels. The first is the level of the mind, and the second is the level of the intellect. The mind is related to emotions, and the intellect is related to rationality. We either operate at the level of our emotions or at the level of rationality. If I were to say in other words, then these are the differences between a man and a woman. A woman lives with feelings, and a man lives with his intellect and his mind. Or sometimes a man can have some feelings of a woman, and sometimes a woman can have some manliness in her. If a woman rationalizes too much, then the whole attitude of being a woman will be finished, because all her feelings will be finished. But these are 2 extremities. One has a right to feelings because feelings are very beautiful, and then there is the intellect. God tells us to give him our minds and our intellects. God tells us to give him our feelings and our intellectuality or rationality. There is no third route apart from these 2, and you cannot operate from any third level. A person is either living with their feelings or with their rationality. No matter in what way you're doing it, you should offer your mind and your intellect to God. If we look at the history of the world, then you'll understand that when this state of society is primitive, then the more that the person will live with feelings. And the more the culture and the civilization advances, the more that the person goes beyond feelings and lives by the intellect. and you see that the Aborigines in the jungle live primitive lives, but they live these lives with a lot of feelings. They do not live with their intellects. And the more that the person becomes civilized, and the more that the person becomes cultured, then he'll operate at the level of the intellect. And the more that he lives at the level of the intellect, then the more that he becomes a hypocrite. This is because he rationalizes everything. Today's society is such that we have reached the peak of our intellects. It has been hundreds of thousands of years since the human being was born as a Homo sapien, and human beings have been developing and developing since prehistoric times, and the state in which we are today is at the peak of intellectuality. People have developed so much of an intellect, and there is one proof of this. We have learnt to do cloning. A person can be created like another person. We've already created a sheep through cloning. This is such a powerful intellect that the seed of the sheep was created a whole sheep exactly like that. One feels like honoring the intellect of human beings. How much of an intellect do we have? This means that if we resolve that nobody out of us can die, this is because when we turn 70, 80 or 90 and we feel as if the wicked is going to fall, then we take one of our seeds and create another life. Or if someone else turns 50, 60 or 70, then we feel that this person is reaching the end, and therefore we take another seed. All you have to do is this in the laboratory. This is quite possible. And however much romantic this imagination feels, it is as much dangerous. In Guruji's last few tours of America, the intellectuals of the world asked him in each and every place about cloning. They asked him what our religion says about this. It is not as if one person dies and another person rises. They come together. If you want 5 Dhruv tutorials, then they'll come exactly like one another. This is a level at which science has reached. How much of an intellect is there? And I do not believe that there can be anything more supreme than this, because they have reached the level of the substance of God. We've reached the level of the work that the Supreme Soul does. This is a powerful intellect. It is an intellect that I feel like bowing down to. But together with this is one of the biggest difficulties in all of society. It is that the more that the intellect has advanced, together with that, the more that the turbulence has advanced, and the more that the instability and insecurity has advanced. The intellect that should have been helpful in making decisions, instead of that, the intellect has become something to create confusions. And that is why you and I still need God. Otherwise, we would have no need for God, because we have reached the level of God. But we will need God, we will need Dharma, and we will need the scriptures. The reason for this is that after creating 5 Dhruv Tacharyas out of 1, society does not know what we do with these 5 Dhruv Tacharyas. If 2 duplicate sheep are created, then it is fine until that. But when 2 duplicate sheep are created, then it creates difficulties. It is very difficult to look after one person. Ask wives and they will know. Then what will you do? This is only about an ordinary family. What will society do? And that is why a quote since the time of the Mahabharata will always be true. Dharma dharma mityahu dharmo dharate praja. Dharma sustains the society. Dharma maintains the social order of the people. In order to sustain society, we will need Dharma and we will need scriptures. There is no being against the fact that the intellect has advanced. But along with the intellect advancing, turbulence has advanced and instabilities have advanced. Think about it. In primitive time, there was not a single asylum. Even today, if you go to places where Aborigines live, you'll be fortunate to find a mentally insane Aborigine. I have not yet seen one. I have not yet even read about one. Have you ever read about an Aborigine who was mad? No, but how many times have you heard that the professor was mad? What I mean to say is that the more that the human beings are becoming intellectual, they're becoming that much more mentally insane. And where does this mental insanity get born from? If one has genetic difficulties and because of his intellectual deficiencies, he becomes what we call a lesser child, then this is different. But if a person is born normal and becomes insane, then consider that this is either his own mistake or it is a mistake of society. Either he has not learned how to use his intellect properly, or society did not learn to look after him. And this problem and difficulty is increasing more and more in today's society. We do not know how to handle our minds, and we do not know how to handle our intellects. We have advanced a lot and we have understood a lot. Maybe Aborigines have not understood psychology, but the more that we understand psychology, the more that our instabilities are increasing. That is why our problems and difficulties are rising. Many people ask questions and point out something and we say, yes, I know about that. It's a trait of my personality, but I can't help it. Then you know what that means. Each and every person has this. Do you not know our problems? We are very clever and we're very understanding. We know what our problems are, but we do not know how to solve them. And maybe just like the state of an extremely high level wisdom that Saddev had in the Mahabharata, each and every person in society has it now. The mind has become powerful and the intellect has become extremely shrewd. And all our difficulties arose because of this. In the Mahabharata there was one Saddev, and today each and every person in society has become a Saddev. They know a lot and yet they are still confused. Our confusions and our instabilities have arisen from our information and our understanding. 5,000 years ago in the Gita, Shri Krishna said that there is only one path for this. Mai eva mana addasva, maya buddhi niveshaya, nivasyasi mai eva ata udvam nasamshaya. On me alone fix your mind. Let your intellect dwell in me. In me alone shall you live after. Of this there is no doubt. We all know this. This is because even after collecting all of this, it is taking us towards instability. Then why do I not take it under God's refuge from the beginning? This is because ultimately peace comes from there. My eva mana adiswa maya buddhi niveshaya ivasasi my eva ata udvam nasamshaya. On me alone fix your mind. Let your intellect dwell in me. In me alone shall you live after. Of this there is no doubt. What Shri Krishna is saying for us is in the beginning of the 21st century. When Shri Krishna is asking for our minds and our intellects, then he is not saying that we should just sit there clapping our hands. It is to solve the problems of the 21st century that Shri Krishna is saying this. The Lord knew that this time would come. That is why God is saying to give our mind and our intellects to Him. And if we give our minds and our intellects to God, then Shri Krishna says that in me alone shall you live thereafter. Of this there is no doubt. When we give our minds and our intellects to God, then we will advance and develop. We will live in God alone, and there is no doubt about this. Right now, I promise you, and at the same time, I give you an oath that the person that can do this, just give yourself a period of 6 months. Have faith in the words of Shri Krishna and on the Gita Ji, and just do this. Think about giving your mind and your intellect to God. This means your feelings, and the intellect means your decision-making ability. Give these two things to the Supreme Soul and write down today's date in a diary. See your life after 6 months and you will feel the difference. And you may not understand this verse through words today, but you will understand it through experiences after 6 months when Shri Krishna says, Mai eva mana adasva maya buddhi niveshaya nivasyasi mai eva ata udvam nasamshaya. On me alone fix your mind. Let your intellect dwell in me. In me alone shall you live thereafter. Of this there is no doubt. Shri Krishna says, in me alone shall you live thereafter. Of this there is no doubt. When Shri Krishna says that in me alone shall you live thereafter, then does this mean that you live in Him within the 4 walls of the temple? No, you live in peace. You live in God's qualities such as peace, compassion, rejoicing, and other such great qualities. You live in these. These feelings will become steady in you, and you will experience this. But we may have the question that, God, we are not able to make our minds steady on you. Our minds are very fickle and our intellects are like this as well. If we cannot do this, then is there another way? God says, yes, there is another way, and shows us the other way in the next verse.